It was just another quiet morning in Pinebrook. The kind of town where people didn't lock their doors at night, where neighbors waved from their porches, and where bad things happened somewhere else. Not here. It was still dark when Ethan Miller laced up his sneakers. The air was crisp and still wet from the night's fog. The street lights glowed amber in the mist. He took a sip of water, tightened the band on his wristwatch, and slipped his phone into his arm holster. Same 5-mile loop. Same trail through the woods behind Oak Ridge. Same routine, until that day. Ethan was a creature of habit. 28 years old, clean-cut, worked in IT from home, and ran every morning like clockwork. He wasn't the kind of guy who vanished without a trace. But at 7:14 a.m., a neighbor's Ring camera caught him jogging past with a wave. And after that, nothing. By 10 a.m., his fiancée, Lena Carter, was calling his phone. No answer. At 11:30, she drove his usual route. His car was still parked in front of the house. His water bottle was still on the kitchen counter. At 12:42 p.m., Lena filed a missing persons report. Within 2 hours, deputies from the Pinebrook County Sheriff's Department were canvassing the area. A search party was formed by sundown. By the next morning, K-9 units were combing the trails, and a drone was in the air scanning the dense woods behind Oak Ridge. It was there, just over 2 miles into the tree line, that they found something. A shoe. Just one. Right in the middle of the trail. Untied. No blood. No drag marks. No signs of a struggle. And that's when things got weird. Because Ethan's watch, the one with GPS tracking and a heart rate monitor, suddenly pinged a live signal, from nearly half a mile deeper into the woods. Deputies followed the signal. The trail narrowed. Trees grew thicker. The temperature dropped. It didn't make sense. They weren't far from the main path, but it felt different. Quieter. Heavier. And then they found it. Ethan's watch, lying face up on a patch of moss. Still tracking. Still blinking. But Ethan was gone. No footprints. No clothing. No signs of animals. Just silence. And what really chilled the deputies was what the watch data showed. At 7:16 a.m., his pace had quickened. At 7:17, his heart rate spiked, fast. And then, at 7:18 a.m., it flatlined. Except, it kept tracking location data for another 6 minutes. A winding, zigzag path deeper into the forest, a direction Ethan never ran. Then nothing. By the end of day 2, people in Pinebrook had stopped saying, "It's probably nothing," and started saying, "Something's wrong." Lena, devastated but determined, stayed glued to her laptop, phone, and police scanner. She knew Ethan better than anyone. He didn't go off trail. He didn't scare easily. And he wouldn't just run off. But one thing kept nagging at her. The night before Ethan disappeared, he'd sat on the edge of their bed for nearly an hour after midnight. Not moving. Just staring out the window into the woods. When she asked if he was okay, he whispered, "You ever get the feeling, something out there is watching you back?" The search party doubled in size by day 3. Volunteers, deputies, dogs, drones. Everyone combed the woods in coordinated sweeps. The sun was out, but in the dense forest, the light barely touched the ground. Shadows stretched like fingers between the trees. Some of the older locals muttered that those woods always felt off. They'd say it half joking, like a superstition left over from another generation. But no one laughed when Deputy Harrington came sprinting back to the trailhead on the 4th morning, pale and sweating, claiming he'd seen someone watching him from the trees. Not just someone. Something. He refused to go back in after that. Locked himself in his squad car and wouldn't speak to anyone for hours. Lena was still at the search HQ when the radio chatter crackled with excitement that afternoon. Got a hit. Possible trace. East Perimeter. It wasn't Ethan. It was his phone, buried beneath a pile of dead leaves near a dry creek bed. It hadn't been there the day before. The casing was scratched. The screen was shattered. But it powered on. Strangely, it showed no missed calls, no texts. Except for one photo in the camera roll. A blurry image taken at 7:18 a.m., the same time his heart rate had flatlined. The photo showed trees. Just trees. Except, something was wrong. In the corner, barely visible, was a shape. Pale. Thin. Not quite human. Facing the camera. No face. Just, smooth. Deputies chalked it up to motion blur. A glitch. A trick of light. But Lena knew Ethan. He didn't take photos on runs. She stared at the image for hours that night. Then she zoomed in. And saw it. Between the trees, at the edge of the frame, was what looked like a footprint. Barefoot. In the middle of the woods. In January. By day 6, the town was no longer just searching for a missing man. It was holding its breath. Some refused to go near the woods. Hunters swore the deer had vanished. A group of teens dared each other to camp near the trailhead, and came running out before midnight, white-faced and silent. One of them had recorded something. A faint whisper caught on video. Hard to make out. But when slowed down, it sounded like, "Don't look." They never released that video publicly. But Lena got a copy. She played it over and over, with headphones, late into the night. Every time she listened, her stomach tightened. Because she knew that voice. It sounded like Ethan. That week, she stopped sleeping. Instead, she studied maps, retraced GPS coordinates, and rewatched drone footage frame by frame. That's when she noticed something strange. On the edge of one drone shot, just beyond the recommended search radius, there was a clearing. Perfectly circular. Hidden by the tree canopy. No one had searched there yet. She told the sheriff. He waved it off. Said the drone just glitched. No such clearing on our maps. But Lena had seen it. She wasn't crazy. And the next morning, she decided she'd go look herself. Lena slipped on Ethan's old hoodie, laced up her boots, and set out before sunrise. She didn't tell anyone. Didn't leave a note. Just packed a flashlight, water, and printed coordinates. It took her nearly an hour to reach the edge of the mapped woods. Her breath came out in clouds. The trees here were older. Thicker. Unwelcoming. Birds didn't sing here. No wind. No sound but her boots on frost-covered leaves. And then, the clearing. Just like in the footage. A perfect circle. 20 feet wide. The ground was bare, no grass, no leaves. Just dirt and silence. Lena stepped into the center. Her flashlight flickered. Her phone lost signal. She whispered Ethan's name. Nothing. Then, behind her, a twig snapped. She turned. Nothing there. But when she turned back to face the clearing, something had changed. In the dirt, right where she'd been standing, was now a single fresh footprint. Barefoot. Facing her. Lena didn't remember running back. She only remembered cold, the kind that sinks into your bones, and the sound of her own heartbeat crashing like waves in her ears. When she finally stumbled back into her car at the trailhead, her hands were trembling. Her boots were caked in mud. And when she checked the soles, they didn't match the footprint she'd seen in the clearing. Because that footprint was bare. And she hadn't imagined it. She'd seen it appear while she stood there, as if someone, or something, had stepped into the world behind her. But when she turned, the clearing had been empty. No wind. No movement. Just that single footprint in the center of the ring. A ring where even leaves refused to fall. That night, Lena locked every door and window in the house. She turned on every light. But no amount of brightness could shake the cold creeping through her chest. When she finally collapsed into bed, she left the bedroom window open just a crack. Old habit. Ethan liked the sound of the wind through the pines. But sometime after 2 a.m., she woke to silence. Not quiet, dead silence. No rustling trees. No crickets. No cars. She sat up slowly. The air was ice. Her breath fogged in the dark. And then she heard it. Just beyond the cracked window, a whisper. Not a voice. Not speech. But a sound that pressed against her ears like a breath without lungs. Like a wordless suggestion worming its way into her skull. She froze. Her body wanted to run, but her mind was caught, paralyzed, as if something had reached into her spine and unplugged every instinct but fear. Then the whisper stopped. And she heard her name. Lena. Soft. Familiar. Ethan's voice. She lunged to the window. Threw it open. Nothing. Just the backyard. Empty lawn. Silent pines. But when she turned back into the room, her heart skipped. There, on the wooden floor just inside the window, were wet footprints. Bare. Human. Leading away from the window. Toward the hallway. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, the footprints had dried. Disappeared. She took photos, but they came out blurry. Unusable. A trick of light, the police would say. Maybe she'd stepped in water, they'd say. But she knew better. Because she remembered the smell, damp soil and cold air, like the middle of the woods after rain. And the footprints had stopped halfway down the hallway, facing the bedroom door. Just standing there. Watching her sleep. Lena didn't tell the police. She didn't want to be dismissed. Labeled unstable. But she needed answers. So she went back to the clearing. Day after day. Each time, she brought something of Ethan's, his hoodie, a photo, even his running shoes. She left them in the center of the ring. Then waited. But nothing happened. Until day 4. That morning, she left Ethan's college sweatshirt folded neatly in the dirt. She walked to the edge of the clearing, turned back, and froze. The sweatshirt was gone. She didn't blink. Didn't look away. Just gone. In its place, was a rock. Smooth. Round. Carved with strange symbols. Lines that looped and crossed in patterns too perfect to be random. She picked it up. It was warm. Later, she'd discover it matched no known alphabet. But that night, her phone buzzed. A voicemail. No number. Just, unknown. She played it. Static. Then. Help. I'm still here. A crackle. Then silence. She played it again. Again. Over and over. It was Ethan. The next morning, she went straight to the sheriff. But when she played the voicemail for him, it was gone. Deleted. No trace. Just like the sweatshirt. Just like the footprints. Just like Ethan. But Lena wasn't giving up. Not yet. Something was happening in those woods. Something ancient. Something that chose Ethan. And now, it had started to notice her. The voicemail haunted Lena. She knew what she'd heard. Ethan's voice, strained, distant, like it was calling through layers of static and time. Help. I'm still here. But every time she opened the voicemail app, it was gone. Vanished. No audio file. No incoming number. Not even a log. It was as if the woods were erasing the evidence. So Lena turned to the only place that still held memories no one could delete, people. She started asking around. Quietly. The kind of questions that made most folks shift uncomfortably in their boots and say things like, "Now why would you go asking about that?" Only one person didn't shut her down. Old Calvin Renner. He ran the tiny bait shop at the edge of town. No website. No register. Just a rusted open sign and the permanent smell of pipe tobacco and lake water. Locals called him Crazy Cal, but everyone still went to him when their engines failed in the woods or their compasses spun for no reason. When Lena mentioned the clearing, he didn't blink. He just said, "You saw it too, huh?" They sat behind the shop that afternoon, sipping bitter coffee from chipped mugs. Cal's eyes were a stormy gray, like someone who'd stared into too many winters and seen something staring back. "That circle," he began, tapping ash from his pipe, "ain't on any map for a reason. It moves." Lena frowned. "What do you mean, it moves?" "I mean it don't stay put. Some years it's west of the creek. Other times north of the ridge. Always a perfect circle. Always wrong." He told her the story of Mason Vick, a logger from the 1940s. Disappeared one morning during a routine scout for timber markers. They found his boots, neatly placed on a stone in the middle of a clearing. They found no footprints leading in or out. Then in the 70s, 2 teenagers tried to spend the night in the woods for a dare. One was found wandering Route 9 the next day, naked, mumbling in a language no one recognized. The other was never found. Cal took a long drag from his pipe. "My daddy told me stories. Said those woods are a wound. Something ancient bleeding through. He called it the hollow place. Lena's fingers tightened around her cup. Do you think Ethan's still alive? Cal looked at her then, long and heavy. Alive? Maybe. But if that place has him, he's not where you think he is. That night, Lena studied Ethan's old journal. He wasn't much of a writer, but he sometimes jotted thoughts after long runs. Mostly mileage notes, muscle complaints, the occasional deep thought. But something near the end caught her eye. 2 days before he vanished, he'd written. Saw something in the woods today. Not a deer. Not a man. It stood still, like it knew I was watching. But when I looked away, it was gone. Thought I was imagining it. But now I'm not so sure. Then the next line. Felt like it wanted me to follow it. She flipped to the last page. It was blank. Except for one sentence, scribbled hastily in the corner. If I go, I don't think I'm coming back the same. Lena didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Every shadow in the house felt wrong. Every floorboard creaked with hesitation, like the house itself was holding its breath. At 3:14 a.m., her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Static. Then, faintly, Ethan again. Lena, it's not just a place. The line crackled. She held the phone tighter. It's watching who comes, who stays. Another burst of static. You're getting close. Then something new. Another voice, not Ethan's. Low. Whispering in a tone that sounded hungry. One word. Stay. Then silence. By morning, Lena had made a decision. She couldn't just wait anymore. Couldn't keep hoping the sheriff's department would stumble onto something they didn't understand. She needed to go back. Not to the clearing. Deeper. Past the known trails. Past where the maps ended. To wherever Ethan had been pulled. And this time, she wouldn't go alone. The hollow place had taken many. But one had come back. Lena found him through Calvin Renner. A name spoken in a low voice, like an old curse, Jonas Teller. 25 years ago, Jonas was just a high school senior with a broken home and a backpack full of bad decisions. He and his younger brother went hiking one October weekend. Only Jonas returned. He'd never spoken publicly about what happened. Not to the press. Not to the sheriff. Not even to his parents. But Calvin said something strange when Lena asked about Jonas. He's the only one who ever made it back whole. Or, mostly whole. Jonas lived in a rust-colored trailer at the edge of town, nestled under tall pines like a forgotten warning sign. He was tall, wiry, with pale gray eyes and skin like he hadn't seen sun in years. His hair was long, tied back in a rough ponytail, and his voice sounded like it hadn't been used in days. When Lena introduced herself and mentioned the clearing, Jonas froze mid-sip of his coffee. His voice was flat. Tired. Why would you go there? Lena told him everything, Ethan's disappearance, the footprint, the calls, the circle, the whisper that had said stay. Jonas listened, silent. Then he stood and walked to a battered closet. Pulled out a satchel. Inside, a bundle of worn maps, a compass with a cracked face, and a small leather-bound journal with the initials JT. I told myself I'd never go back, he said. But if it's calling again, and it's taken someone else. His eyes met hers. You'll need someone who knows how to survive in there. They set out before dawn. Jonas knew paths that weren't on any maps. Trails that seemed to bend when you weren't looking. Trees that looked the same no matter how far you walked. He warned her as they went. You'll feel like time skipping. Like shadows move when they shouldn't. Don't trust anything that talks. Not even if it sounds like him. And if you see the ring again, don't step inside. By noon, they reached a part of the forest Lena had never seen before. The trees grew closer together. Their trunks were twisted, their bark blackened as if scorched. And the light was wrong. It flickered through the branches in ways that didn't match the sun. Almost like it was breathing. Then, Jonas stopped. This is where it started, he said. Where I lost him. Lena looked around. It didn't seem different than any other stretch of woods. But she felt it, a pressure in her ears, a weight in her stomach. Jonas knelt and brushed aside a pile of moss. Beneath it, another circle. Faint. Carved into the dirt. Not like the one Lena had seen before. This one was smaller. And inside, etched in the soil, were the same strange symbols that had appeared on the smooth rock left in the clearing days ago. There are dozens of these, Jonas said. Some old. Some fresh. They're like doors. Lena whispered, doors to what? Somewhere else. She stepped back. You really believe this place is another dimension? Jonas shook his head. Not a dimension. A hunger. A place with a will. A place that remembers. They camped near the ridge that night, just outside the zone Jonas called the Deep Bend. He refused to go further until morning. That's when it's safest, he said. Not safe. Just less dangerous. That night, Lena dreamed of Ethan. But it wasn't the Ethan she remembered. This Ethan was older. His eyes sunken, his voice hollow. Don't let it in, he whispered. It wants you to believe it can give us back. But it's only showing you what you want to see. Then, his skin peeled away like ash in the wind. Lena woke with a scream, clutching her chest, heart racing. Jonas was already awake, staring out into the trees. It knows you're here, he said. And it's waking up. They entered the deep bend at dawn. Jonas moved first, stepping between two ancient trees that leaned toward each other like whispering sentinels. As soon as Lena followed, the forest changed. The birds stopped singing. No wind, no bugs, no sound at all, only the crack of twigs beneath their boots and the distant, low hum of something alive. It wasn't silence. It was listening. Jonas knelt, checking the compass. The needle spun in lazy circles. Don't rely on direction here, he warned. Everything folds in on itself. The woods here, loop. They walked for an hour. Then 2. Then 3. But the light never shifted. It was always a cold, early morning haze, even as exhaustion settled in. Lena looked behind them. The trail was gone. They stopped at a small creek, the water still and black like ink. Jonas handed Lena a strip of cloth. Tie this around your wrist. If the voices come, and they will, keep touching the cloth. Focus on the texture. It helps you stay here. Lena frowned. Voices. It'll sound like Ethan, he said quietly. Maybe your parents. Maybe me. But it's not. As they moved on, the forest began to echo. Faint words, barely audible. Like whispers carried on a broken radio frequency. Most were gibberish. But then Lena heard her name. Clear. Lena, help me. She stopped. Jonas grabbed her arm. Don't. Look. Back. They reached another clearing by noon. This one wasn't empty. In the center stood a house, not old, not ruined, but pristine. White walls. Blue shutters. The porch swing creaked slowly, even though there was no wind. Lena gasped. It was her childhood home. Perfectly recreated, down to the chipped flower pot on the steps. Jonas tensed. It's a lure. It's not real. Lena approached anyway, her legs moving as if on strings. The door creaked open. Inside, photos of her and Ethan. Her late mother's perfume. The radio in the kitchen playing Ethan's favorite song. Then she saw Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table. Alive. Smiling. You found me, he said gently. I knew you would. Tears filled her eyes. Ethan. He stood, reached for her hand. It's okay now. We can go. She stepped closer. Then something tugged. A sharp jerk on her wrist. Jonas. Feel the cloth, he barked. Now. Her fingers found the strip of fabric tied around her wrist. She closed her eyes. Focused on the texture. Rough. Real. When she opened them again, the house was gone. So was Ethan. Only trees. And something else, a faint trail of ash in the shape of footprints, leading deeper into the woods. They followed the footprints for what felt like hours. Time didn't work right here. Lena's watch blinked between 3:03 a.m. and 7:49 p.m., back and forth. Then she saw it, a figure up ahead. Slumped. Human-shaped. Jonas pulled her back behind a tree. "Stay here." He crept forward. Lena held her breath. The forest held it with her. Then Jonas knelt beside the figure, and cursed. He waved her over. It wasn't Ethan. It was a body. But not recent. The remains were skeletal, clothes faded and shredded by time. Next to it, a torn leather wallet. Inside, a water-stained license. Michael Teller. Jonas's brother. Jonas didn't cry. He just stared. Hollow. Then he said something that chilled her more than the body. "I saw him yesterday. He spoke to me. He asked me to follow him." They burned the remains. Jonas insisted. "It's the only way it lets go." As the fire crackled, Lena noticed something in the ashes, a small, flat stone, like the one left near Ethan's gear. This one had a symbol carved in deeper. A spiral, surrounded by 3 eyes. She tucked it into her pocket. Suddenly, the wind howled. Trees shook. The sky darkened. Jonas grabbed her hand. "It knows we're close. We have to move." As they ran, the forest warped around them. Trees stretched tall and thin like melting wax. Shadows moved faster than the sun. Whispers grew louder, sharper, turning into screams. One voice rose above the rest. Not Ethan. Not Jonas. Not hers. Something ancient. "You weren't invited." They stumbled into a final clearing. This one was different. Massive. A perfect circle, like a crater. In the center stood a tree, gnarled and towering, its branches twisted like grasping fingers. Its bark was covered in symbols. Hanging from one of the limbs. Ethan's hoodie. Jonas stepped forward, breath shallow. "This is it," he said. "The Hollow's heart. This is where it decides." Lena stared at the tree. Then her phone buzzed. One new voicemail. No number. She played it. Ethan's voice. "Lena. I'm here. But it's not letting go. It wants a trade. Static. It wants someone new." Lena stood frozen in the clearing, the voicemail still playing in her hand, Ethan's voice echoing like it had come from beneath the earth itself. "It wants someone new." The phone crackled. Then silence. Jonas looked at her, face pale. "That's what it always does," he whispered. "It takes one to keep another. It made me that deal years ago. With Michael. I refused." He lowered his head. He never came back. The words struck Lena like cold steel. Her knees buckled slightly. The weight of this place, the twisted tree in the clearing, the voices, the rules, it all clicked into horrifying focus. This wasn't just a haunted forest. This was a bargain pit. A primordial exchange system hidden in the folds of the woods. And it wanted her to pay up. Jonas stepped back, eyes avoiding hers. "You should leave. Now. Before it decides for you." But Lena didn't move. She was staring at the tree. Something about it felt alive. Breathing. Its bark shifted slightly, as if a heartbeat pulsed beneath the grain. And on the ground, encircling it, were dozens of those small, flat stones, each etched with spirals and eyes. Some were broken. Some bled. "It doesn't want a body," Lena muttered. "It wants belief. Commitment." Jonas frowned. "What do you mean?" "It feeds on the choice. On the agony of the choice." She looked at him, her voice suddenly hard. "You brought me here because it wanted me, didn't it?" He went pale. "No. I didn't know. Not until now." But the way his eyes drifted to her pocket, where she kept the stone, said otherwise. The tree shifted again. A low groan echoed across the clearing. Then something stepped out from behind it. Ethan. He looked just like she remembered. Same hoodie. Same scared eyes. Same small scar on his cheek from a childhood fall. "Lena," he whispered. She ran to him, but stopped short when she noticed. No shadow. And his eyes were too wide. Too still. Unblinking. "You're not him," she said quietly. The Ethan thing blinked once. Slowly. Then its voice twisted, lower, lad. But I can be. Stay. With me. Behind it, the tree moaned again. Roots slithered across the ground like veins. Jonas grabbed Lena's shoulder. We need to go. Now. And leave him, she shot back. That's not him, Jonas growled. It never was. The thing smiled. Trade me. Someone fresh. Someone willing. It looked at Jonas. Then Lena. Choose. The world tilted. Lena could barely breathe. Her hand went to the cloth Jonas had given her earlier, now worn and fraying on her wrist. She focused on the texture, grounding herself. She thought about Ethan. About the night he disappeared. He had gone for a run. He hadn't wandered. He had been led. Lured by the thing pretending to be her, just like she'd been lured here by Jonas. It was a pattern. The woods didn't hunt. They invited. They seduced. And they bargained. She turned to Jonas. You knew. About the trade. You knew all along. Jonas looked at her, defeated. I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe it just wanted the truth. But the truth is, Lena. He swallowed. I was supposed to bring someone. I didn't think it would choose you. Lena stepped away from both him and the tree. She looked at the stones around its base, tokens of failed deals, of people who said no, and lost. And then she spoke clearly. I'm not making a trade. I'm breaking the cycle. The air shifted. The light dimmed. The creature wearing Ethan's face began to scream. You can't. Roots whipped through the dirt, lashing at her feet. You were chosen. You owe us. But Lena stood tall, staring straight into its false eyes. No. I chose. She pulled the spiral stone from her pocket, held it up, and snapped it in half. The tree let out a deafening howl, a deep, seismic groan that shook the clearing. The air rippled. The sky blinked black, then white, then back again. Jonas screamed. The forest folded inward, collapsing on itself like a dying lung. Then, stillness. When Lena opened her eyes, she was standing alone. The tree was gone. No Ethan. No Jonas. Just empty earth and a path behind her. A clear path. Out. She walked for hours. The forest quiet, ordinary now. Birds chirped. Wind rustled leaves. No whispers. No bending time. When she reached her car, it was covered in pollen and leaves. The date on her phone said 3 days had passed. She called the police. Ethan's body was never found. Jonas's backpack was discovered weeks later, high in a tree. No fingerprints. No trace. But something strange happened in town after that. The woods near Deep Bend changed. People who had once disappeared, names on memorials, faded photos, began to be remembered again. As if whatever force had erased them was fading. Unwinding. The hollow was losing its grip. But not gone. Months later, Lena sat on her porch, staring into the tree line beyond her backyard. Her phone buzzed. One new voicemail. No number. She pressed play. Lena. You chose wrong. We're still here. The voice was no longer Ethan's. It was hers. Lena didn't sleep that night. After the voicemail, she sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, playing it again and again. Each time, it ended the same way. We're still here. Her voice. But not her. Slower. Hungrier. Warped like something spoken through a broken speaker. Or a broken mirror. She checked the caller ID again. Nothing. No number. No trace. Just like Ethan's last call. She considered deleting it. But something in her gut said don't. Somehow, she knew, this was proof. The only evidence that what happened in those woods hadn't been a shared hallucination or a trauma-fueled spiral. It had followed her home. Over the next week, the signs became harder to ignore. At first, they were small. A flicker in the corner of her vision when she passed mirrors. Cold spots in her house, even when the heat was blasting. The sound of Ethan's footsteps, she would know them anywhere, pacing outside her window at night. Never knocking. Never speaking. Then came the dream. In it, she was standing in the clearing again, the tree pulsing with light beneath the soil. But this time, she wasn't alone. Rows of figures stood around it, motionless, faceless. Watching her. Each wore a spiral stone on a string around their neck. She couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Then a single voice whispered, "There is no debt forgiven. Only delayed." She woke up screaming. Lena tried everything: therapy, meditation, even burning the spiral stone fragments she had kept. Nothing worked. She felt watched constantly. Until one night, while researching similar cases online, she found an old forum thread buried in an archived survivalist website. The post was dated 1998. "If you hear your own voice on the line, don't answer again. It's not you. It's what the woods remember you as." She clicked through the replies. One user said they saw someone they lost in a fire, walking around at night. Another claimed they burned a spiral mark into their barn floor, and never saw their sister again. But one comment stopped her cold. "Once you reject the trade, the hollow doesn't forget. It waits. And then it finds someone else to ask the question all over again." It was signed J.R. Jonas Rowe. The very next morning, Lena received a package. No return address. Inside, a small cassette tape, a broken stone pendant, and a note. It read, "I told you to run. But you stood your ground. I hope you're stronger than I was. If you're hearing this, then I'm gone. The tree's gone, but the hunger isn't. You'll see it again. Different face, different shape. But always the same bargain. Record everything. If someone else ends up where you were, maybe this time it'll be enough. Burn the tape when you're done. Or bury it. But don't play it twice. J." Lena stared at the tape, heart pounding. She no longer questioned whether the hollow was real. That wasn't the mystery anymore. The mystery was what it wanted now, and how far it would go to get it. That night, she played the tape. Jonas's voice came through. Unsteady. Tired. He described the first time he heard the whispering tree. How it offered him his brother's life in exchange for a stranger. How he refused. And how his brother was never seen again. But Jonas could still hear him, on certain nights, weeping through the forest like wind between branches. And then, his voice trembled. I think I finally said yes. I'm sorry, Lena. It wasn't supposed to be you." The tape cut out. She buried it behind her house the next morning, wrapped in salt and ash. But she knew, like Jonas had learned it too late, this was never about one person. The hollow was a system, a curse passed along, wearing new masks every generation. And it was active again. That same night, the local news reported a missing high school track runner, young girl, same route as Ethan, same woods. No footprints. No evidence. Just a spiral symbol carved into a tree at the trailhead. Fresh. Lena drove out there before sunrise. The police had already cordoned off the area. But she saw it, etched clean into the bark, like it had been burned in with purpose. She reached out, fingertips hovering over the spiral. Suddenly, she felt heat. Then cold. Then emptiness. And a sound behind her. She turned. A little boy stood on the edge of the trail, staring at her. He had no shadow. "They said you'd come back," he whispered. "They said you still owe." Then he vanished, into the brush, into the trees, into the hollow. Lena staggered back, breath ragged. The forest was claiming new ground. But this time, she wouldn't run. She took out her phone, opened her voice recorder, and began to speak. "If you're hearing this, it means I failed to stop it. But maybe you can. They offer you something you want. Something you lost. But there's always a cost. Don't believe the voice. Not even if it's yours. Especially not if it's yours. This is how the hollow grows, by memory, by desire, by grief, and by silence." She stopped recording. Saved the file as echo_1.mp3. Then, she turned toward the woods. Toward the path. And walked back in. The woods were different now. Or maybe Lena was. Every step deeper into the trail felt like peeling back a memory she didn't know she had. The dirt path was silent, the trees too still, as if holding their breath. The spiral marks weren't just on trees anymore. They were in the rocks. In the moss. In the very grain of the wood beneath her feet. And then came the whisper. Soft. Gentle. Like a breeze curling through her hair. Welcome back. Lena didn't flinch. She had waited for this. She followed the voice, not toward the clearing where the tree had once stood, but down a side path she had never noticed before. As if the forest had been waiting for her to earn its secrets. The path ended at a narrow gorge. Deep. Black. A natural scar across the land. Below, a shimmering pool of dark water. Mirror-like. Too still. On the far side, a single figure stood. Ethan. His eyes locked on hers. Face pale. Expression unreadable. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just stared. Lena stepped forward, then stopped. A second Ethan appeared beside him. Then a third. Then a fourth. Each one slightly off. One too tall. One with eyes too dark. One with no mouth at all. And behind them, rising from the pool like mist. The hollow. No single form. Just pieces. A hand made of bark. A face made of teeth. A body shaped by shadows. It whispered not from a mouth, but from inside her head. You came to us. That is the only choice that ever mattered. You returned. That is the only truth that binds. Will you finish what was started? Lena felt her body begin to go cold. But her mind was clear. This was what it wanted all along. Not just a trade. A witness. Someone to carry the memory. She stepped closer to the edge of the gorge, heart thudding. You took Ethan, she said aloud. But you weren't after him. Not really. You wanted someone who chose to stay. The hollow said nothing. Just pulsed. Behind her, Lena heard more footsteps, soft, childlike. She turned. The little boy from the trail stood there again. His eyes were different now. Familiar. He was my brother, Lena whispered. The boy nodded. Not a yes. Not a no. Then he stepped forward, took her hand, and placed something in her palm. A spiral stone. Whole. Unbroken. Warm. Finish it, he said. So no one else has to. And he vanished into the mist. Lena stared at the stone. The voice returned, closer now. Inside her ribcage. Take your place. Speak the name. Open the gate. She knew the name. She'd always known it. She took a breath. Closed her eyes. And screamed. No. The sound ripped through the woods like thunder. The hollow shrieked. The ground trembled. And the stone cracked in her hand. From the fissure, light spilled, pure, golden, real. The opposite of the hollow's hunger. It struck the shadows, and for the first time, they recoiled. The copies of Ethan shattered like glass, their pieces drifting upward like ash. The gorge began to close, rocks grinding together, trees collapsing inward as if rejecting the infection. Lena turned and ran, light trailing behind her like a comet tail. The forest screamed. Branches reached. Roots clawed at her shoes. But she didn't stop. Not until she crossed the trailhead again, heart pounding, breath ragged. And the silence was just silence. No whispers. No copies. No hunger. The hollow was gone. For now. 2 months later, Lena sat at her desk, microphone in front of her. She had uploaded 6 episodes so far, true crime meets supernatural mystery. She called the series Echoes of the Hollow. The views were climbing. The comments were intense. Some people believed her. Others mocked it. A few said they'd seen the spiral symbols in their own towns. But it was the private messages that haunted her. I heard my daughter on the phone last night. She's been dead for 4 years. I found a spiral carved into my bathroom mirror. My son says he didn't do it. Please tell me how to stop the dreams. Lena kept recording, telling the story in pieces. Slowly. Because if the hollow ever woke again, someone needed to remember how it ended. And more importantly, how it began. One night, while uploading her next file, her screen glitched. Just for a second. A folder appeared on her desktop. She hadn't made it. No name. Just a spiral icon. Inside, one audio file. She clicked play. It was her own voice. We're still here. To be continued. If you enjoyed this episode of Chase Studio Stories, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue to share impactful and meaningful content.